we've got to make sure that we do abide by our GDPR rules, and also, if anybody's not quite happy about that, please let us know. The other thing is there will be a survey afterwards, which we would ask that you would complete about what you think of the presentation in this form and going forwards. And we're always very grateful if you can give us some idea of what type of future events you might like to see your branch put on, because that's what we're here for, is to get a broad broom and see exactly how we can make improvements going forward. When we can do joint events again, face-to-face events, and obviously some remote events. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mac, who's going to give us an overview on his perspective of the Isle of Man Coastguard activities. Thanks, Mac.
No problem. Just let me see if I can share this again. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Peter. I should really kind of like explain as I go along that there is a lot of slides. They're mainly for me for prompts, but obviously for you guys to look at as opposed to looking at me. My background with the Coast Guard, just let me check to see if this works. Everybody see that slide? Brilliant. So my background basically was as a 17-year-old, I joined the volunteer service in 1990. You can do the math. And then obviously later on in my career, I then became a full-time Coast Guard in 2004. That role has kind of like evolved over time. I was a sector manager, as what they used to call. That is now called the rescue team manager. Someone else does that. I took over the role of what was the role of the Chief Coast Guard before they got rid of it. But I'm kind of like doing that role, not in name, and I'd just like to say not in wage either. But here I am, and that role is now even further developed to a point where I wear both hats, both Coast Guard and Harbours hats. So I am now the line manager and the manager for the Marine Operations Centre, which I'll go into in a bit. So wear lots of hats, only being paid for half of it. Just like to say that. So anyway, so quickly, just to make sure that everybody's aware that people from the UK might not be. Some people in the UK, in the Isle of Man might not be as well. The Isle of Man Coastguard is not part of HM Coastguard. We are a government section within the Harbours Division, which again is a division within the Department of Infrastructure. There are two full-time officers. Like I mentioned, the rescue team manager and myself, who's the operations manager. And we are fully funded by the Isle of Man government. So although we are separate from HM Coastguard, we do follow HM Coastguard principles and some training policies, and obviously some health and safety issues as well. So that's that. This is what you would have got back in the day. Just to reiterate, we don't look like that now. We have proper PPE. So back in the day, they weren't called Coast Guards, they were called Rocket Brigade. It's 1920s, 1910s. Basically, a bunch of people who had an interest in the maritime, who were at hand, who could lend a hand in an emergency. And again, they were mustered up, thrown on back of any truck or any vehicle, Castletown being Castletown. They nicked a Castletown ale van or wagon. I'm reliably informed that they did bring the beer back not entirely sure, but this is what you would have got back in the 1920s, and this is what they were dealing with. Old commercial vessels, no GPSs, no modern day technology. Radios weren't the greatest, just in their infancy, VHF, and they did find themselves in trouble every so often. This is the Clan McMaster, which ran aground at the Isle of Man back in, I think it was 1920. I can't see the top of it, 1923. And just to your left, you can see a little life boat. That's the crew. And this is how the rescue would have been done. Would have been done by breeches buoy. Again, a load of people who are trained to do it with a load of members of the public helping out to pull what they call whips, basically ropes, as a pulley system. So there's a stricken vessel that ran aground there, and it could also be brought up to the top of a cliff. I'd just like to mention, and the reason why I've showed this picture is obviously health and safety wasn't a big factor in them days. No helmets, no harnesses, no life jackets, no nothing. And obviously the Coast Guard has had to evolve with changing legislation. This is what you get now. This is Ramsey Coast Guard. We have 5 stations around the Isle of Man, which we have 80 volunteers altogether. Now, for an area that's only got 100 miles of coastline, that's quite a lot. And the reason we have quite a lot is, again, managing risk. Most of these people are volunteer Coast Guards. They have their own full-time jobs to do. And the way modern life is going at the moment, a lot of people don't have a lot of spare time anymore. To do a cliff rescue, we need a minimum of 7 persons to do that, which also includes an officer in charge and a cliff technician. To combat that or to mitigate that, then we employ 16 in each team, and that gives us kind of like a safety factor. If people can't make it either because they're on holiday, they're at work and they can't get away from work, we have pilots, doctors, nurses, teachers, all kinds of different people. Clearly they can't get out of work when we need them to. We also have the added advantage of, because we have 5 teams, we can actually bring in a flank team to boost that team up. Another risk that we also have to manage when it comes to team members, we have a high turnover of volunteers. Their life changes. Some have families. Some of them move on. The tall, lanky one in the end there. He doesn't mind me saying that. He recently moved to Australia. Out of all that there, there's probably about 4, 5 who are still in the team. The rest have been replaced, and that's since 2014. So, and that's not just Ramsey. We have the same issues in Douglas, Peel, Port Erin, and Castletown. And we're not the only volunteer service that have the same problem. The RNLI have the same problem, and so does the fire service. A very high turnover of volunteers. When you take into account that it takes roughly 2 years to make someone from start to finish into a competent person for cliff work, it doesn't leave. It takes a lot of time to train someone up for 2 years, and some of them only last 3 or 4 years. Unfortunately, some like me, old buggers like me, we last till 30 odd years because we've got nothing else better to do, probably. So, and obviously we provide them with modern day PPE, overalls, nice jackets, helmets, boots, which is a constant gripe in the Harbours Division, where the Harbours Division's PPE boot amount that you're allowed to spend is £70, whereas with the Isle of Man Coastguard, we give them nice Berghaus boots, which cost something around, I don't know, 140, 150 quid. So we try not to skimp on PPE. for obvious reasons. This is the type of thing that you have to deal with these days. Excuse me. It would appear that most people, or some people around the world, have more money than sense, and they can go off and buy themselves a nice little yacht or a speedboat, or in some cases dive equipment off eBay. And you don't need a license. The maritime world is the last bastion of freedom. You don't need a license. You don't need, in certain places, you don't need insurance. You don't need any qualifications, and you don't need any safety equipment, really. There's no law that states that. So we find that people go out and buy these nice, beautiful boats, don't know how to use them, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in all kinds of trouble, to which we have to respond to. In this case, it was a case of the chap, this is a Port St Mary, a chap didn't really know how to tie off his boat on a visitor's mooring, and unfortunately the rope gave way, and that boat found itself on the rocks at Guernsey. I think it's Guernsey. Anyway, within 10 minutes of me taking that picture, she was gone. She was smashed up by the waves. So this is also a major problem we've got. It's not just here, it's in the UK. Kids who think they're indestructible, and don't get me wrong, I used to do it as a kid myself. However, back in the day, if a police officer or your father came along, you'd get a good kicking. Nowadays, you can't really do a lot. All you can do is advise these kids, because theoretically they're not breaking the law. However, we have in the past, in places like Laxey, for those people who know Laxey, it's a great spot for kids to jump in, and normally we wouldn't normally do anything about it. It's relatively safe. However, last year kids were starting to play chicken with yachts and motorboats, and this was something that we couldn't control. Every time we would talk to them, we were told to go and bugger off, I think is the polite way of saying it. And we have no powers of arrest. Police are far too busy to help us out with this type of thing. So in the end, the decision was made to close the pier off, which doesn't only affect these kids, but also affects the general public. And that's something that we have to worry about. However, my argument to our politicians were, when it comes to risk, when it comes to health and safety, it comes first before people's walks are affected by not being able to go to the end of a pier. As such, we closed the pier off. This year we haven't had to, because they've learnt their lesson, hopefully. However, we've had to do the same thing at Port Erin, but that was mainly for antisocial behaviour. So get back to the nitty gritty. We are a department, a section within a department of the Isle of Man Coastguard, and as such are on their rules and regulations. And obviously we have the Health and Safety at Work Act, which we all abide to, all have to. All the volunteers are told that they are given PPE, and they are taught how to look after themselves and look after their colleagues and this, that, and the other. And they're explained that they have a responsibility to themselves and their colleagues. And we explain to them that we have a responsibility to them to keep them safe as much as we can. We do have a Department of Infrastructure Health and Safety policy, which we abide by. We have a Harbours and Coast Guard Health and Safety Manager. It's not a full-time role, but that's me. As well as doing my other day-to-day job, I also look after the health and safety side of things, the management of the division. Basically, all that means is when we get near misses or accident reports, my job is to make sure procedure is followed. And that is reported back to our chief executive through Andrew Williams. So we have, obviously we have Isle of Man Coastguard the rescue team's standard operating procedures. The last count, we've got about 50 of them, all of which need updating on a regular basis, all of which are reviewed by not just me and the rescue team manager, but by the station officers. And we have regular station officer meetings to talk about SOPs and how we can improve them, how we can make them safer. And when we're doing that, we also look at our risk assessments. So the Isle of Man Coastguard has risk assessments, harbours have risk assessments, and I generally look after both, but I do that through consensus of the officers involved. We also have a risk register, which also includes all kinds of different things within harbours, within a division, but also with regards to the Isle of Man Coastguard. We have also near miss and accident reporting system, which is the same within the DOI, the Department of Infrastructure. And we have a number of people who are trained up and trying to make that more to IOSH level. Myself, I had to go and do, when I was given the role of the health and safety manager, I had to go off and find myself some qualifications. So I ended up doing an EBOSH qualification. And the rescue team manager and myself are trained up to, well, I'm trained up to COSH assessor as well. So hopefully we cover some of the bases there. Just to carry on with that, the rescue team manager and myself train the rescue teams. Certainly the officer in charge, their training includes health and safety, dynamic risk assessing, which I'll come back to a little bit later. The Coast Guards themselves, the volunteers, they exercise regularly, so we budget for them to have training hours of 60 hours each person per year, which is broken up into 2 exercises per month. I do regular internal assessments on their skills and their competencies. Phil, who's the rescue team manager, he does the training, I do the assessing. And both of us then go away to the UK to be trained up to instructor level for cliff and water. And we also have added there as well, we also get peer reviews from HM Coastguard as well. So if they find something, they'll let us know that we're not abiding by their standards. With regards to the rescue teams, we do have a hierarchy of rescue, and this is across the UK Coast Guard as well. So which basically means rescuer comes first. We look after that person, the person we're going to throw over a cliff, or the person we're going to throw into the water to do the actual rescue. They come first. The rescue team comes second. Any bystanders come third. And unfortunately for the casualty, they come last. And the reason for that is they're already in trouble. And we're endeavoring to make their situation a bit better. We certainly don't want to make it worse, but we don't want to add to the casualty list by throwing a load of people into a situation that's not safe. So we don't, it's not like some organizations, probably not in the UK, but I don't elsewhere, where they go gung ho. We sit down, we risk assess everything, dynamic risk assess everything, and the rescuer comes first. With that then, to make everybody safe, obviously we have cliff equipment, which is obviously we want to make sure is safe, and obviously we want to make sure it's fit for purpose. We talk regularly with HM Coastguard and line equipment with regards to our systems and how we can make our systems more better. So to give you an example of that would be back in the day when I was a cliff technician, it was one rope. I abseiled down one rope to do a rescue. Now the systems involve 2 ropes and a lot of safety equipment to make that person safe. Also with that, obviously we come under Lola and pure regs as well. I've just picked those two because they're most appropriate to the actual rescue teams themselves. So so with regards to that, all Isle of Man Coastguard cliff equipment and any other equipment that is used for lifting purposes, so including training racks, are inspected 6 monthly independently by the British Engineering Services, which is the Isle of Man government's insurer service. We have no choice in the matter. They come along, they have a look at the stuff, and we look at the stuff as well. We also do the rescue teams themselves. They have a care maintenance. They're trained up to do care maintenance, obviously, for everything. And that's just not cliff equipment, it's every single bit. So with regards to even the water equipment, to first aid equipment, all that kind of stuff, they'll do monthly checks, and that's all logged and put on spreadsheets. Pre and post checks then, this is a thing that we teach our volunteers. We kind of like do it the reverse way to what industry would do in working at height industry, because clearly we don't have the chance or to do thorough pre-use checks if we're doing a cliff incident. Obviously, we need to make sure that the equipment is checked, obviously, before we go. So they have a quick check before they don it. But obviously, there's clearly someone hanging off a cliff. You can't spend too much time. So we do thorough post checks after use. So after we use it, it goes for a thorough post check, and we do a quick pre-check. In the UK, they take that a stage further. When they actually use a bit of equipment and done a thorough check, they will actually put that equipment back into an equipment bag, and that will be sealed to say that has been checked, and as such, you don't need to check it again. So when they come to use it in anger, if it's sealed, they know it's been checked. That's something that we're looking into as well, to follow. We have a fault reporting system as well, not just in Coast Guard, but obviously in harbours. But in Coast Guard, we also have an isolation procedure. So any of our volunteers, after doing a pre or post check, are not happy with a bit of equipment, they will isolate it without question. We have spares, but they will isolate it. And the only two people who can take it out of the isolation bin is the rescue team manager and myself, because like you go down to the next point, we are both trained by line equipment to the PP inspector by approved a competent person in industry standard, which Kev is about to do next week, and I'm doing mine in December. So hopefully, barring COVID. So just quickly, there are more slides to so you don't have to listen to me too much and read too much. This is obviously a cliff, general cliff, our bread and butter even, as to what we do. And again, we have procedures for this. We have risk assessments for this. We train for this. Everybody who's put anywhere near a dangerous area has a higher level of training. However, as you all know, everything doesn't always go according to plan. And as such, all our people, volunteers, are trained to dynamically risk assess the area as well. I liken our procedures to ingredients of a cake. We train people how to put these things together. However, depending on the situation, is depending on what type of cake they make. They don't go away from how to use equipment. They can't use equipment that it was never designed to do. They can't use the equipment and the setup differently to what has been designed, but however, they can use different setups to do a different thing. So what you're seeing there on your left-hand side is a standard cliff descent, a cliff recovery using a quad pod with a cliff technician and a casualty in front of them, which is going straight across. However, we might not have that desired room at the top, so we might actually go off at a right angle, which is called an indirect lead. The station officer, or the officer in charge, makes that determination based on our SOPs. So in this instance, they couldn't not use the quad pod for recovery. They can't just go down in one line. They can't just not use a bit of equipment because it makes it quicker, and because that casualty is now hanging off a cliff. They have to use the proper procedures. However, they could move things around to suit their surroundings. On the right hand side, there's an example of that. Normally, you wouldn't have a rope bag on the back of their back. That's 200 meters of line. The reason for that is basically the geology of that cliff. There's snag hazards. The cliff itself might be a little bit bigger or might have a big overhang. So our setup allows us to move things around. Normally, they would only carry 100 meters of line in that little blue bag that you can see on the left. In circumstances, we can carry the whole lot. Here's another thing that we have to do now, which is something new to the Coast Guard. Rock armor, which man-made caves, basically. So we've now had to redesign some of our procedures to allow us to drop directly down. It's something that we've never done before, and it's something that HM Coast Guard have never done before, but together we've come up with this system. And again, we exercise with this all the time, certainly down at Castletown with the airport, and Douglas with our breakwater, which is again full of man-made caves. We do not do cave rescue. We're not qualified. We don't have the right equipment for that. So we have a cave rescue. The police then have to, or the fire brigade have to rely on cavers and all kinds of different people, or bring a team in from the UK. But we are not qualified to do that, and nor would we do that. On your right hand side is again another setup, but that allows us to bring an ambulance or a police officer down a cliff to either SOCO for a dead body, or an ambulance for a casualty that's beyond our medical ability. So, and we exercise with the ambulance service and the police, as like to say regularly, but not as regularly as I would like. But and this is kind of like your typical what an SOP would look like. This is basically what a diagram, a schematic of what our cliff would look like. On your left-hand side, basically, I don't know if you can you see that arrow flying around? Yeah. Up here, you've got main line and safety line. These people here are trained how to lower. Our rig, this chap here, the cliff technician, our rig allows that person to self-descent on the main line, but he still needs to be lowered on the safety line, or he can be lowered in entirety, so it keeps his hands free. We have an officer in charge who has overall command. What you can't see in this diagram is a safety officer. We also have a safety officer. However, each one of the people who are above there, I remember saying we have to have a minimum of 7. There could be at least 10, could be even 16 there. Each one of them has the ability to stop any operation by just shouting stop. And they won't get a slap on across the head if they get it wrong. Just bear with me. You're right. Sorry, my boss has just walked in.
Wanting his office.
Wanting his office back, but he's not getting it. Anyway, so and then we have obviously mitigation for people not going or falling over a cliff. So we basically the officer in charge or the safety officer will mark off a line. No one is allowed to go past that line without a harness and a rope. And that includes me as the duty officer or me as the trainer. I can't just run across there to the quad pod and have a look if there's a problem. I have to get harnessed up and put a rope on. And the guy just there who's the edge safety officer, that person, that's his role, is the safety of the cliff technician and everybody else who may walk into his area. Excuse me, roles and responsibilities then with regards to cliff work. Obviously, we have an officer in charge now. The officer in charge can be anyone from a station officer, deputy, section leader, to anyone who has a cliff technician, for instance, someone who has a working knowledge of every aspect of that operation, from cliff technician to hold fast to edge safety. The officer in charge has to have a knowledge of all that, and so does the safety officer. There's no point having a safety officer there if they haven't got a clue what the cliff technician setup looks like. We then have cliff technicians, edge safety officers, mainline and safety line operators, and then other people are then used for hold fast and carrying equipment and anything else we find that needs to be done. Mainly bystanders as well, cordoning off for bystanders. So quickly moving on, water rescue. Again, hierarchy of rescue. Rescuer comes first, rescue team comes second, and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to water rescue, we do not do the whole Baywatch thing where we just jump into the water. We will don our PPE if time allows us, but the first thing we will do is throw a line to the casualty. And this is something that we've been speaking to with our police force over here, where we've had in the past police officers just jumping in after to save someone else's life. We've talked regularly with them and even given them throw lines to put in their vehicles, and we tried to explain to them that that's something that we just don't do. We will throw a line to a casualty if they're able to catch it. If they're not able to catch it, if they're unconscious or in the process of swailing around drowning, then we will throw someone else in. And normally if we've got time, a rescue swimmer will go in with a floating line. Once they grab onto the casualty, we can then pull them ashore. This is how, again, this is another example of one of our SOPs or a diagram. We have obviously zones where we want to make sure that our rescue operators and bystanders are safe. So we have danger, hot zones, warm zones, and cold zones, and we abide by them as well. However, we do say if someone is flaying around drowning and there is no time, if a Coast Guard officer does decide that he wants to jump in or she wants to jump in and do that rescue without any PPE, by all means, they'll just do it and we'll back them up later on. And again, roles and responsibilities with water rescue. Again, officer in charge, safety officer, rescue swimmer, and we have a thing called shoreline tenders, basically people who hold on to rope. And then we have shoreline upstream and downstream spotters, which I won't go too much into, but basically, especially in rivers, you don't want a rescue and the casualty being clanked by debris, so we'll put someone up the top upstream, look down, and we'll have a downstream spotters with throw bags. So if anything does go wrong, we have the ability to throw a line to the rescuer. With regards to standards for water rescue, again, we follow HM Coastguard. We train with them. We have instructors who go away to be trained by them. We have the same PPE that they have. And as such, we follow their standards, and they follow DEFRA standards in the UK. Just quickly looking here, just to make sure I get it right. To the water and flood rescue responder team level, which is category D. I don't know if that means anything to anybody over there, but certainly over here, it just means we are limited to what we can do. So when it comes to sea rescue, not a problem. Coastal surf rescue, not a problem. Flood water, not a problem. However, when it comes to fast, rapid, swift water, going down rivers and stuff like that, we are not qualified to do that, and we don't have the PPE to do that. So that's the standard that the HM Coast Guard hold themselves at, and that's the standard we hold ourselves at too. Obviously, we do coastal and inland searches. There's not much risk involved in this. However, when we're looking for anything, so the biggest risks is dangerous objects, chemicals, and all kinds of stuff that might get washed up on the beach. Their bodies, unfortunately, or body parts, we have to do risk assessments, dynamic risk assessments on the day as to what we're looking for and how we're going to cope with it if we, and there's also the risk of aftermath. After the incident, if it is a dead body, what do I do with a load of volunteer Coast Guards who are probably going to be traumatized by what they find? So we have that in place as well. So, and that includes inland search. Again, the Isle of Man is a small island. We surround it with Coast Guards, and the police over here have cottoned on that. Actually, the Isle of Man Coast Guard is quite good at getting a load of people out with their own PPE, trained in search technique to go out and look for missing persons and all kinds of different things that they want us to go and find. So we actually do more inland searches than we do coastal searches at the moment. Hill search, yeah. Ironically, up until recently, the Isle of Man Coast Guard had a hill search team. And that was based again on a risk assessment, based on the fact that normal Coast Guards are used to flat beaches. And what we don't want was to send a load of, let's face it, probably some overweight, unfit, a bit like myself, up a hill, and ask them to go climb a mountain, although we only have one mountain, climb a big hill, resulting in them probably having a heart attack. So we decided we would look at a core of 80 volunteers and see if we could find 10, 15 people who were fit enough, who loved walking up hills anyway, and ask them whether they would like to form a Coast Guard hill search team, which they did, and we had for 3 or 4 years. However, we never called them out. We never had a call out for them, so that team was disbanded. And we do a dynamic risk assessment again on the day. And if I've got Ramsey and Peel Coast Guard doing a hill search team for me, I will look around and say, you go up there, you stay here with me. And that's basically how we do it. Adverse weather, again, fraught with its own dangers. So again, with our water rescue techniques, we try and tell people, including other services, that you don't really need to go traipsing through flood water, especially on man-made surfaces like roads, and because manhole covers tend to pop up. You could fall down one, you can end up in a gutter, the flat flowing water, which then bottlenecks somewhere, can lift up vehicles and all kinds of different things. So we don't tend to, if we can help it, go into floodwater, especially the one on the left-hand side, which is fairly fast flowing. It's not particularly deep, but the reason we were asked to go through that one was because the house down the bottom there, there was reports of people in houses that may need evacuating by helicopter. So we sent a team down to assess what was going on there. Helicopter was on its way, but again, it's one of those things. It's one of those things that I wouldn't say argue, but discuss with other services, whereas they like to take people out of houses in floodwater. Our view is, if they're warm, they're safe, and they're well, leave them there, especially on the Isle of Man, because the floodwater will tend to go away once the tide goes out. And then you can do something with them later on when it's a lot safer for them to do. If the building itself or their surroundings is in a dangerous condition, then fine, we'll go and get them. But 9 times out of 10, we'll just leave them where they are. Makes sense. Again, you get this in the UK, we get this on the Isle of Man. People, it used to be, when I was a kid, it used to be playing chicken, wave dodging and this, that and the other. And our job was to go out there and try and discourage people not to do it. Now it seems to be the new trend where people want to take selfies of themselves in front of big crashing waves. So what we've had to do now in consultation with the police over here is actually be more proactive. We get weather warnings. We all get together. We all look at our areas of interest, obviously coastline for us, and where we know there's going to be significant overtopping and wave crashing, we will talk to the police and we will make sure that that road or that area is closed off to public. Gone are the days when you can rely on the public to have a bit of common sense. They don't seem to have it these days. So we will close off promenades and walkways, and we will stay there and help the police block that road off. We still get the occasional 1 or 2 we manage to get through, but I think recently the HM Coastguard, I think a year ago, 2 years ago, lost a volunteer. A volunteer died as a result of trying and stop someone from taking a selfie. They got hit by the wave as well and ended up being smashed up against a wall or something like that and ended up dying, unfortunately. So we take this very, very seriously. Another thing that we've been involved in, which we now have to, again, dynamically risk assess. We do off-road assistance for the ambulance and for the police if they have a casualty somewhere up in the hills or somewhere up a lane or somewhere in a farmyard where they can't get their ambulances. I think it's fair to say on the Isle of Man, we don't have the luxury of being able to go to the next county to get resources. So the ambulance service on the Isle of Man is very, very stretched. And any one day, there are only 4 ambulances covering the whole of the Isle of Man. And they have to logistically move those ambulances around based on probabilities of areas that they may get called at certain times of the day on certain days. So Isle of Man people will see ambulances just driving around. That's for a reason. They're moving their ambulances to where the high risk areas are going to be for that particular time. When it comes to helping them out, we understand that they are a stretched resource and we will help out as much as we can. So we will do off-road assistance. And in some cases, again, with dynamically risk assessing, even normal casualties that we've got, if we know that there's the ambulance is struggling, we will take the decision either to evacuate that casualty ourselves to hospital or wait for the ambulance to turn up. It's just one of those things that as a duty officer, I've got to weigh up. So, and the teams on the ground have to weigh up and risk assess themselves. Is the casualty able to wait? No, we'll send them. We'll take them ourselves. Coastal patrols. We have our guys out doing coastal patrols all the time, and that's basically well, back in the day, it was all down to a radio watch back in the 80s. However, this is more to do with trends and people trends during the summertime, during the wintertime. We will target areas where we know that people may not be behaving themselves, or maybe doing something daft. So likes of, we've got a storm or something like that going on, or the big thing at the moment is people, young people having drinking parties on beaches and then getting themselves into all kinds of trouble in the sea. So we do regular patrols. However, that's drastically been reduced from having 2 or 3 patrols a day to one a day now. Safety cover. This is something that the Isle of Man Coastguard does not do very, very lightly because of liability more than anything. However, there are certain events where we can't just not ignore. So if people are having a normal event near a coastline, we will give them advice. If they want to do it on harbours, with my harbours hat on, we'll be asking for their own risk assessments, their own insurance and stuff like that. But when it comes to something like this here, which is the Tower of Refuge, which is normally on an island in Douglas Bay, and normally you can't get to it. However, during spring tides, you can walk to it, and the geography of it all means that you can walk to it. You can have a good half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe an hour on it, and then all of a sudden the tide will come in and sneak around the back. And we have thousands of people doing this on organized events. So there, I think you can see how many people are actually trying to get onto the island. Every year they do it. And every year they have something like in the region of 5,000 to 7,000 people getting onto that rock within an hour and trying to get back. So with that in mind, again, risk assessing every event that comes through, and we get notifications of all the events. These are the type of events when we say, yes, we will have a presence, and we will have people in water rescue equipment by that castle waiting, and people ashore as well. So if any of these people do slip and fall, which they do tend to, we can get them off that rocky outcrop fairly quickish. And we're also there looking on the tide. So as soon as the tide gets to a certain level, that's it. Everybody gets off. No ifs, no buts, and we will escort them off that island. So oil counter pollution, again, it's something that we've inherited from the Department of Infrastructure, because we have the ability to get people to anywhere on the Isle of Man within half an hour with equipment. So they've given us equipment. However, it falls into the Harbours Division's coastal responsibilities, as well as search and rescue. But that responsibility is oil pollution. And the only reason I put this in for regards to risk is, obviously, we train all our coast guards to deploy the equipment, but it's mechanical equipment, and which has a risk associated to it as well. There's also a chemical risk to it. Oil is a chemical. Well, it's a natural chemical, but it's a natural product as well. But that does have some risk attached to it as well. So we train very regularly with the Coast Guard teams to make sure that they're looking after their own health and safety when it comes to oil pollution. Animal rescue then, quickly. The reason I put animal rescue in is we will do animal rescues. I think in the UK, the HM Coastguard have a policy on animal rescue, which doesn't mirror ours. We will do domestic pet rescue as if they are people. And the reason for that is if we don't do it, the owner is going to do it. And that adds then to the risk of what's going on. So nobody wants to see their dog or their cat, which we have done in the past as well, go over a cliff, and they certainly don't want to hear from the Coast Guard. We'll get there when we can. So we will treat it as a human being, and we'll take people out of their work. We'll set the pages off, and we'll do everything for regards to domestic pets. When it comes to farm animals and other animals, we will rescue them if we can. However, the risk associated to that is we can't use our cliff equipment for anything bigger than a sheep because of the weight. Our system has a limit of 250 kilograms. You go over that, we have to get rid of our equipment, to destroy it and buy new. So again, it all goes down to is what's in the best interest of the animal and our rescuers. This one in particular was fairly easy. It was just a case of getting up a grass bank, but the cow itself was a fairly old cow. It wasn't really part of the herd. It was more of a pet. So we decided that we'd take the extra time and do it. And we ended up, because we couldn't use our own equipment, we used old rope and a gate. Only problem is we look like we're barbecuing the poor thing. So in the end, directional find out, again, there's no, I don't know why I put that in there. It's just a method of us able to find anyone who's lost at sea who have a VHF radio. Again, it's the last bastion of freedom is the maritime world. We can't force people. However, we do try to insist that people bring out a VHF radio. I'm not all that fussed whether they have a GPS, and if they don't want to wear life jackets, that's entirely up to them, but at least give us a fighting chance. Bring a radio with you. If you don't know how to use it, all you got to do is count to 10, and we'll find out where you are by using a directional finder. And then we can send rescue assets to you. That's a quick slide, that one. Other things that we find that we have to do dynamic risk assessing on a very regular basis, more regular than you'd think, is ordnance. The Isle of Man is right bang in the middle of the Irish Sea. I don't know if anyone's aware, but the North Channel, the actual channel between Northern Ireland and Scotland, there's a place called, there's a dike called Beaufort's Dyke. It was used to dump munitions there from the Second and First World War. And occasionally these things find themselves washed up on the beach. So ranging from old military 12-inch mortars to phosphorus canisters, which spontaneously combust when they dry on the beach. So again, it's one of those things we'll go out and go and search for them, but we have to sit there with our staff, with our coast guards, and explain to them the health and safety issues of what they're supposed to do. So likes of, which way is the wind going? Do not breathe it in. If it looks like it could go bang, keep well away from it. And we also have an exercise submarine, a submarine exercise area around us as well. So just to go through it, just to give you an idea of what the one on the top left is a 12-inch mortar, which is found on a campsite, which we find on a regular basis. The one down below it is a submarine marker. And the one that we get, a regular one, is the one right in the middle. And that's a wagon oil filter that's been thrown overboard by a fishing boat. And we get quite a lot of calls for that. Again, we train our guys. Just in that picture, actually, you can just see the corner of of a handbook. That's the book that we use and the military use to try and identify what they're looking at by the markings. And again, there is a set procedure for how they do that. And I'll just, it's the next bit. So anything that looks nasty and we're not sure of, we will take pictures off, send it to the MOD, and 9 times out of 10, they will say, yeah, we're coming over and deal with that for you. However, due to budget constraints and stuff like that, that can take 48 hours. So again, we have a procedure for that, which basically says that we will cordon off that area and man that area. The police can't do it. They don't have the manpower. So we will do it using maybe 2 teams on a rotating, and yeah, basically just keeping the public safe and keeping the beach closed. You can close a beach off, but someone will always insist that they have a right to walk their dog down there because their granddad did it, and their granddad before then did it. So it's very hard to tell people they can't go down a beach. With that, related to that, we also have time expired pyrotechnics. Basically, distress flares have an expiry date on them. Once they go out of expiry date, they have no UN number, which means they can't be transported normally by road. So again, we've had to get trained up. The MOD will no longer dispose of them on the Isle of Man because of their risk assessments. So what we have to do now is we hold them. We will take them in from the general public. We have modified cages designed for us, which we can hold them in, which means we can temporarily move them up from a location to a secure location that we have on the Isle of Man, where we store these things. And every, usually it's every 2 years, we'll get a private contractor over who will then dispose them on the Isle of Man, which we will assist in. However, because of COVID, that's now been 4 years, and we've now got a pile of TEPs that we don't know what to do with because the boat didn't sail the last time and he couldn't get over. So again, it's one of those things. When we collect them, they have to wear proper PPE. They are not allowed to be carried in the vehicle without that proper cage, and they have to then be transported to our central location on that day. And that's all based on our risk assessments. Again, to try and lessen the risk of everything going on, we try to do a bit of education. We go to schools. We do talks to even adult areas, so like yacht clubs, to try and teach them or try and reiterate the safety message. Please wear life jackets, please do this, please do that. Tell kids, look, we can't stop you from tombstoning. However, this is what you need to think about. Is there enough water? Can you see the bottom? Is there a way of getting out? Have you thought about cold water shock? We try and get that message out. And most of the time it does fall on deaf ears, but every so often we do get a result where somebody did remember the message and was able to help themselves. Vehicles, I quickly put this in, mainly because we've got a current issue which we don't know how to solve at the moment, and it might be something that you guys in the health and safety world might have come across and may have a solution for us. On the pure regs, obviously we provide a Land Rovers. However, I think Mountain Rescue in the UK have had an issue or had an occasion where they have rolled a Land Rover and it's crumpled, leading to them to put roll cages into their new fleet. one of our staff had gone over, done a course, a driver's course, off-road driver's course, and has come back saying that we now need to put roll cages in our current existing fleet of aging Defender Land Rovers. And the reason we keep Defender Land Rovers is because they have the ability to put a stretcher inside it with a casualty securely, and we haven't found another vehicle that does that, as well as doing off-road capability. So it now looks like possibly we might have to start installing roll cages. So I'll be happy to have any advice from anyone out there who are listening as to whether they've heard of this regulation or whether they've heard of this issue and what kind of mitigation they've been able to put in. At the moment, it looks like, because you can't get a Defender now, we've been steadily sending our Land Rovers to get chassied, new engines, brakes, and all kinds of stuff. But now it looks like they may have to go back and put a roll cage in them. So I'll be interested to hear any advice if anyone's got any. We also have these types of vehicles as well. We've got one left, and the reason for this is, again, because we had to do a risk assessment. You can't carry equipment and people in the same cab. So we decided to give our teams crew cabs so we can keep the equipment and people separate. So this may be something that we have to go back to if we can't find a solution for the Land Rover issue. We work with other maritime and other search and rescue assets as well. A lot of people think or have said, why don't the Isle of Man Coastguard, like HM Coastguard, have rescue boats? Again, risk assessing everything. Why would we? We have 5 lifeboats around the Isle of Man that have who can do a better job than we could ever do. They have the equipment, they have the volunteers, the staff who are trained. They do their own R&D, they do their own risk assessments, they do all this, that, and the other. Why invent the wheel? So this is why the Isle of Man Coast Guard's never gone down the route of rescue vessels. However, the UK, the RNLI have having their own issues as well with regards to how many people they can put on board and what they can do for us, down to their risk assessments now. So an example of that would be the Atlantic 85, the rib on the top right-hand side. Back in the day, we used to be able to just load that up with equipment, a load of Coast Guards to go to the Carver Man if we needed to do a rescue on the Carver Man. However, they have now gone through a risk assessment process themselves, and they are limited to how many people and how much equipment they are allowed to put on that boat, which means now that we've had to find other ways or supporting ways of getting more equipment over to the Carver Man quickly. And that involves private vessels as well, fishermen and all that kind of stuff, and helicopters. So, yeah. And we've also just recently had to draw up a memorandum of understanding with the RNLI. Never had to have one since 1820 odd in all our history, but now we've had to. Again, not so much a risk assessment, but more of a risk register side of things, and auditors basically saying, where is it saying that the RNLI will do this job for you? When it's a gentleman's agreement, we've always done it. Yeah, not good enough anymore. You're going to have something on paper that says that that's what they do, and this is how they're going to do it. So we've just had that signed recently as well. Helicopter operations then, clearly with Coast Guards, at some point we're going to have to deal with a helicopter. Certainly search and rescue helicopters. They are fraught with danger. They are a dangerous thing to be around or to be inside of. And again, we have procedures as to how we operate with search and rescue helicopters. Coast Guard helicopters, and we exercise regularly with them with regards to winching operations and helicopter landing site management exercises, and just generally getting to know the actual helicopter itself, make sure we're not doing anything stupid, how we approach it. I think I've got a diagram later on. What's different to us over here on the Isle of Man with our rescue teams, because we have SOPs, risk assessments, and trained staff and experience with dealing with helicopters, we've now found ourselves being tasked to other types of helicopters. So, for instance, from the Nobles, our local hospital, Nobles, has a helipad. Any search and rescue or any military helicopter that now lands on that helipad, the Isle of Man Coastguard rescue team has to be there to manage that site. And that's based on a risk assessment done by the hospital and us, which has never been a major problem because you don't get many military helicopters landing there. However, that now looks like it's been expanded to the introduction, the possible introduction of an MOU, a memorandum of understanding or a service level agreement with a UK air ambulance service, which may service the Isle of Man. There's now talk about that might be a regular occurrence. As such, we've been asked whether we can expand our operating procedure to cover helicopter air ambulance operations on the Isle of Man, which not only covers the helipad, but may cover anywhere on the island. So again, we might find ourselves being called out to deal with an air ambulance, which is something new for us. Again, when that starts happening, we'll have to risk assess that and work out, is that something that we're able to do? And if it is, what do we need to do to make it safe? Just give you an idea of what SOPs we have for that type of thing. This is just a quick snippet of what's inside an SOP. As you can imagine, working with helicopters, the SOP is quite big and quite thorough. So I've just taken a couple of pictures, diagrams. So basically shows how to approach a helicopter, any helicopter. And when we're talking about not so much the helipad, but landing a helicopter out in fields or on a beach, where we're actually going to put it and where you, if you're higher than level ground or the helicopter's tilted or whatever, it's all in that SOP and it's all in that risk assessment. Again, we do take it quite seriously. I think that was about it. I've tried to go through virtually everything I can think of that you guys might be interested in. There's a lot more stuff there which I could bore you with, but I'm not going to. So I think the best thing to do is maybe open up any questions you may have that may have missed in my presentation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much, Mac. Yeah, there's about seven questions been raised in the chat room.
Okay.
Perhaps we could have a look at those.
Yeah.
If we can find them. Yeah. There's one there. Where does the responsibility stop with the Coast Guard and get redirected to the RNLI? Or vice versa in regards to rescue? Yeah,
okay. So it's so because the Isle of Man is a self-governing country, a crown dependency. It has coastal status as a port, flag, and coastal status. Coastal status basically means that we have to provide search and rescue for our waters and salvage and pollution. How we do that is the Isle of Man Coastguard has a memorandum of understanding with HM Coastguard that basically says anything maritime, anything basically watery, deeper than me, is coordinated by the UK Coast Guard. Anything beyond shore-wise is coordinated by the Isle of Man Coastguard. The two of us, those two services, are responsible no matter what.
Okay.
The RLI are just an, I wouldn't say just an asset, but a fantastic asset, but they are just a rescue asset that we can call upon. They have no responsibility whatsoever. In fact, because of their charitable status, they can actually say, no, we're not going. They never do.
Yeah.
But they have the ability to say, no, it's too dangerous for us, or no, that's not in our remit. We're not going to do this. So they have no responsibility. The responsibility lies with the Isle of Man Coast Guard and HM Coast Guard. And that's a conversation we have very, very quickly before we turn out assets, part of our coordination.
Thanks, Matt. There's one there from Cy Kringle, one of our committee members. What's the rationale for volunteering? Hours, commitment time, proximity to stations, etc. Right.
Okay. So we don't have any hard and fast rules like the fire brigade do. So, like fire brigade, you have to live, I think, within a certain distance of each station. So, as a declared service, we declare that we will be from time of leaving station to anywhere in the Isle of Man with a rescue team and equipment within half an hour.
Right.
So how we do that, we get together every so often and work out. We look at our reaction times, our response times, and this, that, and the other, and we work on how do we do that. So we recently went through a phase where we were asked to save money with the possibility of closing one of our volunteer Coast Guard services down. And we were able to argue that because we declared 30 minutes, that would be virtually impossible. The rationale for volunteer side of things is we don't have the budgets or basically we don't have the instance number to justify full-time staff or full-time, because there was also talk about maybe having one full-time rescue team based in the center of the Isle of Man where they could go off in different directions and stuff like that. We don't have the instance to justify full-time staff with pensions, with overtime, and you'd have to have so many staff. Yeah. So the rationale is basically we do it by volunteers. They don't mind me saying this, they're fairly cheap. The only risk is, like I said before, we do have a high turnover.
Yeah.
And we used to have a hard and fast rule where you had to be close to the station. We don't have that anymore. However, if someone lives in, say, Peel, or I was in Peel team and then suddenly now moving to Ramsey, they can't stay in Peel team. We'll transfer them to Ramsey.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There's one there from Francis. She's asked, or he or she has asked, what's the day-to-day liaison with HMS Coastguard? Is that? Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So day-to-day, we liaise with. So how HM Coastguard works is they have a network of a coordination center. So the one that covers our area, I should explain, the Isle of Man search and rescue area is smack bang in the middle of the UK search and rescue area. We're not like Jersey or Guernsey where we're outside it. We're right smack bang in the middle. So the Isle of Man actually lies in area, I think it's area 33, which is coordinated and managed by Belfast Coordination Centre. However, Belfast and all the other coordination centres around the UK are linked, they're networked. So any one of them can take over their area. So we don't know who we're talking to on a day-to-day basis, but we do talk to them on a day-to-day basis through the Marine Operations Centre. We also have liaison groups and meetings. So we have the RC working group, which meets every 6 months, where the UK Coast Guard, the Isle of Man Coastguard, the Irish Coast Guard, the RNLI all get together and discuss what's happening, what's going to be happening, how can we improve things, statistics, trends and all that kind of stuff. And we also have local liaisons with our RNLI, which is now being rebranded the Isle of Man Maritime Search and Rescue Group, where again we bring the HM Coast Guard over and they talk to us and the RNLI.
Just running a bit short of time, so we take one more question. Just a comment here from Michelle. Shocked to hear that people can be in charge of a vessel with no level of competency or training. Thought there would be a safe water course beforehand.
So like I said, it's kind of like the last bastion of freedom out there until legislation can be put in place. And so for instance, the Irish recently had legislation that says you have to wear a life jacket to go out at sea in their waters. And there's an on-the-spot fine of, I think it's €100. That might have gone up to €200. However, their setup and their budgets allow them to do that. They can go out on patrols. Their Navy and their Coast Guard are all intermingled. They have the shared assets basically, so they can police that. Over on the Isle of Man and in the UK, there is no way, with the amount of people out there, that we can police that. We can with commercial by giving them licenses and this, that, and the other, and say if you are a commercial outfit and you are taking fare paying passengers or have staff, because it comes under the health and safety at work, there are laws in to protect those people. But yachts and stuff like that, no.
Thank you very much, Mac. Apologies to all those who've raised some questions, but I'm sure if we field them to Mac by email, he'd be able to respond either to myself and I can forward them on or whatever, or he'll do it directly.
Yeah, no problem.
Really appreciate your time, Mac, today. It's been quite fascinating, really, to quite learn how many things you actually are involved with, either as a sole agency or as a multi-agency. And very, very, we are sort of in a unique situation. Anybody that's surrounded by water is always going to be in a very different place than somebody who's got a coastline with a mainland attached to it and inland borders where the resources could be infinite. But obviously we've got what we've got, and obviously some fantastic volunteers that we rely on. And
absolutely,
we see all these guys bombing around, especially when maroons have gone off and so on, and we wonder exactly what's happened. And
my old boss put it absolutely fantastically when I first took on this job. We have 80 volunteers. If the two of us leave tomorrow, the Isle of Man Coastguard will still carry on. We lose we lose any volunteers, we're in a
that's very true. And again, we're always grateful to retain firemen as well. All these types of guys who give a lot of their time, and St John's Ambulance and so on, and all the other ambulance services who help on the island. Really appreciate your time, and thank you very much. I'm sure the branch would join me in thanking Mac very much for a really good presentation, and I appreciate the short time he's had to put it together. But great to see you, Mac. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely fine. Thank you very much. I appreciate the offer of doing a presentation for you. So yeah.
Okay.
Much appreciated.
Cheers, Mac.
Thank
Bye.
you.